we've done everything. I mean, everything. There's a lot more to that story, but I just hope that they don't stop looking.
I don't think the game's over.
Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. That voice you just heard was one Bruce Arians, head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is Triple Zeros, the anti-hot take sports show. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com, email address, clockersports@gmail.com. As I said, that was head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bruce Arians, talking about Antonio Brown and safety Mike Edwards being suspended for the next 3 games because of falsifying documents, presenting false documents, falsifying their status, vaccination status, whatever. They were lying about how they're whether or not they were vaccinated. AB reportedly even had a false vaccination card, which is a felony. In all, I guess you would say that he got off easy. His lawyer came out and said that he has been vaccinated. We'll talk about more of this in a second because there's some other stuff we got to get to first and foremost. But I just had to let you hear Bruce Arians' initial reactions off of that, and there's some more to that. Like I said, we'll unpack that in a second. First and foremost, though, we got some other NFL action to get to. So. The Dallas Cowboys and the New Orleans Saints faced off on Thursday Night Football. 17-27 was the game. 27-17. I don't know why I said it that way. Dallas Cowboys came away with the win. This game featured no New Orleans Saints that you would recognize other than Mark Ingram, and that was from years ago. It's not like you wouldn't thought about it from this year because he didn't start off the year with them. He started off the year with Baltimore. Was it Baltimore? Did he go to Houston? Houston. I want to say Houston. Anyway it goes, he didn't start in New Orleans and ended up back there now after injuries to Alvin Kamara and forced them to make some changes, try to get something going. They've also lost Jameis Winston after losing Drew Brees in the offseason, obviously, to retirement. Trevor Siemian proved to be ineffective, and the Saints have now lost 5 games in a row. First time, I believe, under Sean Payton that's happened, and honestly, I don't know what we expected to. You could be an offensive whiz kid all you want to, a genius, whatever you want to call him, but you need the horses to run it, and I think we saw a lot of that with how even with Jameis, when they were still good with Jameis, it wasn't the same level as Drew. So, I mean, it's natural to think that there'd be a step back to Taysom Hill. I will say this about Taysom Hill. For all the people who thought that there was a chance that he could be the full-time passer, there's not. He's not. He is the gadget. He is the gadget player that, as I heard it put, a lot of people want to assign the label of that to guys like Lamar Jackson when he is head and shoulders a better player, quarterback than Taysom Hill. Hill 19 of 41, less than 50% of his passes, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks, 2 sacks, 101 yards on the ground though on 11 carries. His quarterback rating was 44.2. There were a series, I think he had like 3 in a row, 2 or 3 in a row where he just was throwing picks and he just couldn't keep the ball in his hands. There's a problem there. That's an issue. Like, that can't be your starting quarterback when you're that careless with the football. And now we could talk about James and his turnovers too, right? But he had cut that way down this season with the Saints and under Sean Payton. So that to me was, and this is a Dallas Cowboys defense that hasn't been terrific this year, right? You've had Trayvon Diggs who's getting his picks, but he's also been burned a lot, and that just was not happening against New Orleans. Now, Deontay Harris did catch 4 passes for 96 yards and a touchdown. Lil Jordan Humphrey had 2 catches, 49 yards and a touchdown as well. But with Hill under center, and that's the other part of it. Like, maybe Dallas' defense looked better because they were playing Hill. And, 264 is still nothing to sneeze at. But 4 picks, 2 sacks. This is not, like I said, not the stoutest of Dallas defenses, at least how they've been playing right now. Dallas snaps a 2-game losing streak and gets themselves, keeps their cushion going in the NFC East as they try to hold off the Washington football team who's been trying to surge. They took down, I think, the Buccaneers last week. Listen, man, the Dallas is a paper tiger to me. There's a lot of questions there, and one of the things about it is their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, who's gotten a lot of buzz for head coaching jobs. The one knock has been that he's young, and part of that showing, I believe, is his abandoning the running game. We've seen too many times where Dallas will fall behind a score and just completely go away from running the ball, and that's not even to do with Ezekiel Elliott's bulky knee. They've got another runner in Tony Pollard who they could effectively use. He's not as good between the tackles, but you could figure out ways to get him the ball and out into space. So it's kind of disappointing to see them go away from it as often as they do. I will say that there aren't many teams outside of them. There's that you feel more comfortable about. You like Green Bay more, probably Tampa Bay more. So they're probably the weakest division winner. Arizona, who's going to take on the Chicago Bears, my Chicago Bears this weekend. We'll talk about that in a second as well. They're probably the fourth division leader, right? Out of those guys. How do you feel about them in Los Angeles? Is the question I think you ended up coming back to. When all is said and done. We have not seen them play each other this year, so that would be interesting. Both of those teams have had some letdown situations, so I'd be interested to see. I'd love to see that in the playoffs. Honestly, Dallas versus the Rams in the conference championship game, and then you have in the divisional round. Then you have the Buccaneers and the Packers in the other game. That'd be great for the Final Four in the NFC. I'd be all for that. We'll see how it plays out. Dallas leaves enough questions for you to wonder if they'll actually make it that far. But if they do, they have a chance to make sure they can get healthy before they get there. That Saints stuff, though, man. Look, I can't even evaluate this because they're not at the team. The defense still looked good for most of the game. That's the other part about it that makes me wonder about Dallas, who was, I think they just got Amari Cooper back for the first game after a couple of missed absences, missed games. So it's hard to evaluate New Orleans right now. Offensively, defense, they still look like they have a chance. They just got to kind of pick it up a little bit more. No, I'm sorry. They got to regroup. They got to wait for the next season. Decide if James is going to be the guy. Decide if you got to go back and get another quarterback or something. And then what you're going to do with Michael Thomas, because that was a big part of what got them off to a slower start than they probably would have liked this year as well. They're a team in transition. That's what you expect when you lose a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm not going to hold it against them too much, but 5 losses has got to be tough for Sean Payton, who has also been, there's been some very, very, very low whispers that he could be possibly, maybe, potentially somewhere else next season. Possibly, maybe, potentially. Not gonna, keep that, not gonna take that to heart, but I will put that out there because I did see that as a possibility mentioned in the media this week. So keep that in mind, just something to look at and look for going forward. In other news, Cordero Patterson is listed as a safety for the Falcons in their Week 13 contest, and I think that's just ultimately the quintessential Cordero Patterson. Honestly, you could probably get away with listing him everywhere on your depth chart as a reserve because there's a good chance that he has at least some experience playing the position, and more than that, there's a good chance that he can play the position semi-well, like right halfway decent. He'll be competent in the role that you put him in. That as they get ready to take on the Buccaneers, they're going to lose that game. That's not the point, though. You got a player who came into the league as a first-round pick, was considered to be a bust after he flamed out with the Minnesota Vikings, who took him, as I pull it up here, took him 29th overall in 2013. So he wasn't an early first-round pick. He's like a first-round pick, but he was considered to be a bust for much of his career. And then his return game was what kind of got him some more recognition. And he became known as one of the best in the league, in league history to do so. Well, over recent years, he's become more of a Swiss Army knife player and found a role on offense as that guy, where you can put him. Atlanta has been playing him at running back. The Bears played him at running back. Receiver's still been. It's funny because the thing he does the least now is play wide receiver. Like out of all the stuff that he came in, again he's been somewhat of a journeyman. Started off with Minnesota, went to Oakland and New England each for 1 year, Chicago here for 2 years, and then now running back with Atlanta. It's amazing to see a player who again was considered to be a bust, but has now stuck around for 9 years. And has become a valuable member for a team that's not good, but he's still a valuable member to what they try to do. He's got 9 touchdowns total on the season. That's incredible. That's his best. That's a career year. He's having a career year. He's got more rushing yards and receiving yards each than he's had in any previous season. I don't know what else to say. Like, when he left, there was a lot of talk of how come the Bears couldn't figure out ways to use him more. And I was like, And maybe there's something to be said for the fact that he's doing this on a really bad team. There's a lot to be said for that. But career year, bro. I hope Falcons fans are celebrating this despite the fact that their team has not been great this season, because that is truly, I think, spectacular to see. Career year in yards, career year in touchdowns, and there's still 7 games to go. Hats off to Cordero Patterson. Like, seriously, jack of all trades, utility guy, Swiss Army knife. You don't think of those guys as being as valuable, I guess, as they are. He's proven that he can do it when given the opportunity, and I think that that's just, again, incredible for a guy who was considered to be a bust. He was a bust, y'all. They said that he wasn't good after coming out of Tennessee. He was a kick returner. That was his claim to semi-fame. And now you think of him as a guy who can do some of everything, listing him as reserve safety. Love to see it. Love to see it. Elsewhere in the NFL, is Russell Wilson cooked in Seattle? Seattle lost yet again in a really kind of ho-hum game. They're now 3-8 on the season after falling to the Washington football team 15-17. Third straight game. They've lost 6 of their last 7, and really, like I said, they're 3-8. So it's not like they've won many games to break up that streak or that kind of negative monotony, as it were. Russell Wilson in his second or third game back, as I pull that up, I believe it's the second game back, did not play very well. 247, 2 touchdowns, 110 passer rating, but still just has it 64% completion percentage. Just hasn't looked like himself after missing those couple of games. This is his third game back now. Still looking like he's trying to figure it out. The offense is just so bland. There's nothing to it. There's nothing there, and what they want to do is not what he wants to do. And when you kind of have that, we saw with Matt Nagy here and Mr. Trubisky, when what you have going is just genuinely not what you want to do, it's not going to work. Because even if it's consciously or subconsciously, you're going to sabotage yourself. Pete Carroll's not calling plays for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's probably not running it the way that they want it to be run, the offense that is out there. And so it's just time for a change. And there have been a few landing spots. We've heard Washington mentioned. We've heard New Orleans mentioned. Tennessee is the one that I think should look into it, because I'm not a big fan of Ryan Tannehill, but that'll never happen. I also would just love to see Russell Wilson and Derrick Henry share the same backfield. But that New Orleans one is interesting to me, because you got a guy in Peyton who has proven he will cater to the quarterback and will do what the quarterback needs, and he can run with the smaller quarterback who had questionable arm strength. I'm sure he could work with Sean Payton. I'm sorry, with Russell Wilson. Sean Payton could. And I think that a system like what they have in Seattle, actually, if this was a swap with Jameis, that actually might work out for both teams. Because Jameis has probably will probably benefit more from a play action style system. Now, that being said, Seattle would have to do something about that terrible, terrible defense that they got going on right now. Right? You can't keep trotting that unit out there to expect anybody to come and save you. But they're not as far. They're 32nd in yards, by the way. Now, they're 6 in points. Figure that crap out. They're stopping you when you get there, but they're giving you up a ton of yards. That would work for both teams. It's just not going to work out in Seattle. They've tried it. It's really kind of fitting if it goes out with this kind of a fizzle here, because of how he kind of burst onto the scene as a third-round pick, usurping Matt Flynn in preseason to take over that starting job, but just never looking back, missing his first starts of his career this year. Right? I think when you put that up there with how he's now, it just looks limp on the way out. They just can't seem to figure it out. They're struggling bad, and there's a chance they turned it around, but it's limited. Like, it's a limited offense. It's a bad defense, and you're counting on Russ to do a lot when he needs support. As we've seen other quarterbacks as they get older, they need support to do those kind of things still. That's just how it goes. So it's over. I think it's done for. They're not gonna make the playoffs. 3-8, they're done. But there's not guaranteed that they will separate this offseason. One point that was brought up about this that I think is very valid is that value that they were going to be able to draw from him, that's gone. You're not getting that anymore. You should have took it when you had this past offseason. Good luck getting a thing more than that next offseason. Christian McCaffrey is on IR for the second time this year. That means he will miss the remainder of the season. McCaffrey has missed a good chunk of the past 3 seasons as he's dealt with various injuries, despite bulking up and really showing that he could kind of withstand some of that pounding between the tackles. It has not worked out that way. 10 games in the past 2 years. So after 16, 2 years prior to that, and 16 with 10 starts in his rookie season. So it's just caught up to him. They gave him 287 carries in 2019. That was it. Remember, we've talked about this. The downfall of Larry Johnson was around those 300 carries. Zeke is starting to wear out, as you see, with carries building up. Jamal Lewis, I believe, had a similar situation happen to him. This is what happens. You can't ride guys like this and expect them to work. And it's proof positive to not pay running backs, as we've seen Saquon Barkley miss time. Dalvin Cook is missing time, despite him being good. Or even high draft capital, because Josh Jacobs was a second-round pick, and he's missed a ton of time, and they're not even sure they like him. Like, they don't even use him like they probably should. You don't pay running backs. You don't draft them high. And you definitely don't use them as your centerpiece of your offense. I think when you do that, you end up inevitably using them for far too much work, and they wear down. It sucks to see McCaffrey go out this way. He's a really dynamic player. He's proved me wrong. Again, like I said, he was proving me wrong with being able to take the pounding. But it apparently is catching up to him, and that's unfortunate. And hopefully this isn't something that will derail his career completely. But I would definitely like to see them use him more in a Kamara style role, where they try to take the tough carries and put them on somebody else and let him do the satellite stuff. Even if he is on the field more often than not, you don't have to give him all the carries to make him your top back. And now the soup du jour. Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians talking about safety Mike Edwards and wide receiver Antonio Brown being suspended for next 3 games due to falsifying their COVID vaccination status.
All right, obviously we had two guys suspended. The league did their due diligence, and we move on. I will not address those guys for the next 3 weeks. They'll just be working out, and then we'll address their future at that time. Other than that, there's really nothing to say. It's a big game for us. It's a division game on the road, and I know everybody wants the other story, but we're playing the Falcons. I don't give a shit about that. Two guys basically, as we look at, they're hurt. You know, and I will say this: in the last 2 years, I don't know if there's been a team better against COVID than we have been. All right, this is a setback because of what happened, but we have done our amazing job. And even when we have never had an outbreak in a position room, so I'm very happy with that part. We've done everything. I mean, everything. There's a lot more to that story, but I just hope that they don't stop looking.
Do you think there are other issues throughout the league with this?
Maybe.
And there you hear it, head coach Bruce Arians of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers talking about Antonio Brown and Mike Edwards and how they're going to be suspended. And while my favorite part of that is him saying that everybody wants the other story, but he don't give a shit about that, I love that part. The bigger story is what he said at the end there about how there's probably a bigger issue with this in the league than they're letting on. And so he hopes they don't stop looking into it. And I would agree with that. Listen, we've already seen coaches, players, left and right come down with it, and this, that, and the third. The thing that separated Antonio Brown is that he was falsifying his status. And I know that we want to act like, well, he's vaccinated now, you know what I mean? And he just had the card. It was that and this, that, and the third. And Aaron Rodgers was out here lying about it too. From all accounts, Aaron Rodgers, the organization knew, in the NFL knew he was behaving inappropriately, but the league, the powers that be knew. This is Antonio Brown presenting information that was ill. It's technically a felony to have illegal medical documents like this. And while his lawyer came out and said that he is vaccinated, is and was are different things. And again, having those documents is a big deal. When we had the story initially and it came out and it sounded like, a former chef, I believe it was, just sounded like he was a little upset, but he definitely said he had evidence and that it was going to be more than just him. And here we are. What I will also say is that the league's enforcement is going to be, or their investigation is going to be suspect because their enforcement has been suspect because their practices have been suspect. How they've gone about it, each individual team has kind of handled things their own way. I'll just say the Bears have kind of surprised me with some of the numbers that they've had, despite all their talk about being vaccinated this year. And not even because, like I said, I know you get the vaccine, you can still catch it. That's not what it means. It means that you don't go to the hospital. I understand that. My point is, just how it's taken out so many guys and how they've not been as cautious as we thought. Maybe people have just become more lax as the time has gone on, but I would agree with him that it's probably a bigger issue than just them. But I will also acknowledge that it's not going to be that Antonio Brown is not like everyone else in that he did also have falsified documents. Now, Brown has missed the past few games dealing with an ankle injury. So, I think he was still going to be out for the next couple of weeks anyway. It just gives him another game to get healthy. Stretch run is what they're really looking at down there in Tampa. But I agree with Bruce Arians, but I also understand why AB got suspended. That's just kind of the way it goes now, and it's unfortunate that it's come to this. But there's no reason to do the suspend. That's the part that I think bothers me. There's no reason to do the falsified card. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on, and a lot of people are going to say stuff to you, but by and large, I think that your people's choices have maybe not been respected because people will say stuff to you, regardless, in both ways. But the NBA, they haven't made anybody do anything. That's what part that I think that throws me off there is that he did it without having to. It was an unnecessary risk, which has kind of characterized his career so far. So maybe that's the bigger takeaway from this is that AB is still doing AB type things. Switching gears, the NBA. Oh, it's getting in full swing. We're not even at Christmas yet. The Trailblazers have fired Neil Olshey, president of basketball operations, after a lengthy investigation proved that he was fostering a toxic workplace that included harassment and racism. Here's what I'll say about this, because I really don't care. Because we've seen this a lot over the past few years, and there's a theme there that I don't even want to talk about right now. We'll talk about that in a whole other episode. I think that's really something that would be better on a Clock of Sports roundtable, but we haven't done those in so long that I just don't. It's kind of just floating out there in the ether. So maybe I'll address it at some point in time when I get another NBA guy on here to talk about it in depth. But the bigger story to me, the bigger takeaway to me, is that with so much change going on with the Blazers this year and next year, why the hell is Damian Lillard not trying to get out of there? This is a roster that has proven that it's stagnated. He hasn't been his typical dynamic self, although he has played better pure point guard this season. They currently sit 8th in the West, 11-12. Why? I get loyalty. And maybe it would take them coming to him. And honestly, that might be the approach that I take if I'm Portland. I might go to Dame and say, listen, Dame, we love what you've done for this city. We appreciate everything that you've done for this city. You're damn near going to have a statue when your time is done. But we gotta hit the reset button on this organization. And we want to help you get to the level that you've been trying to help us get to. And we haven't been able to meet you in the middle there. They need to find a trade partner to get this man out of there, and maybe it's Boston or something. You get Jaylen Brown and some picks to go with Jason Tatum, and we put Tatum something. You get Ben Simmons something. I saw Bill Simmons tweet out something there about trading out Ben for Dame. Yeah, that works too. Whatever it is, Portland has to do something different. They can't keep running this out there because it's futility, and it's kind of disheartening because, like I said, Damian is a solid player, but I mean, how much longer can you keep bashing your head against this wall when there's clearly a ceiling on it? There's a limit. There's a glass ceiling, whatever you want to refer to it as. It's there. They can't pass that threshold, and so I just wouldn't keep trying to do something that I think we've seen by now. Just ain't it. So, they fired Neil Olshey. And he was out there fostering a horrible work environment and all that kind of stuff. But this should just be the next in a series of moves for this Blazers team that includes moving both Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum as they try to regroup and retool themselves for a better team in the future. Because it ain't going nowhere fast. Promise you that. Bron beat COVID in 2 days after it was reported that LeBron James would be out for 10 days. 10 days following a positive test for COVID. He miraculously recovered in 2 days in time to take on the Lakers' opponent on Friday, which happened to be the Clippers. A game that they won 119-115. Now, remember, they were just going to be on ESPN for that game. After it was announced that he was going to be out, ESPN flexed him. Now, it was reported that was because the Warriors and the Blazers were in the same slot, but I still feel like that was because LeBron wasn't supposed to play. After that, ended up being clear that they played. I made the joke on Twitter that he just didn't want to be embarrassed on ESPN. The Clippers are not a team that I feel like has. I was once there with them. I am so beyond that, and they don't have Kawhi either, so there's no reason to even think that. Now, I will say they only won by 4. Oh, no. Hold on. I did miss it. Okay, I was wrong. And they lost to the Clippers. I thought that I was wrong. Okay. Excuse me. Apologies for my old man falling asleepness. The Lakers fell to the Clippers 119-115. I'm dyslexic or something. I just was sleepy. I watched the Hawks game last night, a 98-96 loss to the 76ers that kind of just took me out of sports, and I was checking back in on the Clippers and the Lakers when I was watching that Warriors game that I was just, we'll talk about that in a second too. Lakers. Sorry. Lakers are 3-3 in their last 6. LeBron was hooping and he's back, but they lost. So here's my thing. The bigger story with them, despite Bron beating COVID in 2 days, false positive, whatever. But it is funny because, it just goes to his super recovery and his health lore that he has in his career. In the beginning of the season, I had picked the Lakers to be representatives for the West in the finals. At this point, I can't confidently say that's going to be them. I can't say they're going to make the Western Conference Finals, let alone the NBA Finals. Right now, that looks like it's going to be the Warriors who are the favorites. They just snapped the Phoenix Suns' 18-game winning streak, and Steph Curry's looking like the MVP favorite right now. So if I had to pick now, it'd be the Warriors. The Lakers aren't dead in the water, but I am far from confident that they're going to be able to rebound and rally here with so many questions. Now, they do have LeBron. Anthony Davis is capable of being a great player himself when he wants to be, when he's healthy, when he's locked in, and when he's not, just shooting jumpers. Russ can be OC at times, but he's also proven that he can lead you to a victory or so. But it's just not coming together. And so they're in prove-it status right now. I'd given them the benefit of the doubt. I'm no longer doing that. It's 2 years in a row now that I've seen them kind of succumb to injuries and chemistry woes and just things not working out. And so you're now in prove-it status with the Lakers. Happy Brown could beat COVID in 2 days. Now you got to prove that you are the team that everybody wants you to be and thinks you can be. Wrap it up here as the Bulls and the Miami Heat had their investigations wrapped up against them from the league for tampering in the trades for Kyle Lowry and Lonzo Ball. The final verdict, a loss of a second-round pick when next available. Oh, it hurts. Oh, it hurts. Second rounder when it's next available, 2026 for the Bulls. Oh, how will they ever survive? Listen, if you haven't seen it, tweet it out a while back. A picture of Arturas Karnisovas with the Michael Jordan quote. That's not really his quote, but falsely attributed him to the F them kids. Listen, man, Bulls are so far beyond looking for rookies right now. Now, I get it. They're getting major contributions from Ayo DeSumo, second-round pick. They're getting they were counting on Patrick Williams this year. He's been down. He's a first-round pick. He's a young guy. Kobe White's only in his 3rd year, right? So there was a lot of young guys being counted on. What I'm saying is, if you're trying to tell me that they're not going to have any more rookies coming in for a couple of years, oh, man. That's not what you're telling me now. You're telling me they're not going to get a second rounder in 2026. They still got Portland's first rounders coming soon if they don't make the playoffs. Like, wow. There was a lot of hand-wringing going on about this trade. A lot about the DeMar DeRozan deal. We've already seen. I wrote about this with him. It ain't easy. That should be out sometime. That there's a lot of people, taking their mea culpa, eating their crow about this. Zach Buckley had to write that he underestimated the DeMar DeRozan deal, but he did get Lonzo Ball right. Stephen A. Smith has now said the Bulls are contenders. Zach LaVine came up to me and told me, I know you want them to be this thing, but it ain't gonna happen. He told me that. That's what Stephen A. said. They're changing their tune. Hollinger, I think, had to change his as well. And you get the diplomatic, hey, I just had to say I didn't know, I undersold it, whatever. That's cool. But you know what else? It also was it's proof positive this team has come together faster than I think anybody could even expect it. it's good to see the mea culpas. But as I wrote, their expectations have now changed too. And so I just wrap it up with, while I love that they are beating teams like the Knicks like that, stop becoming complacent when you have those early leads, and eliminate those stretches where you guys just make boneheaded plays. The Bulls can be, they're number 2 in the East right now. If they keep playing this way, there is no reason that they can't finish as a top 4 team in the East. Right? There's no reason they can't. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshUbuck. Hit the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com, email address, clockersports@gmail.com, and of course, hit up the Facebook page, follow the show on Twitter and Facebook at 30spod. It's the number 3 zeros and pod. And of course, read the stuff, Last Run of Pro Football, Pippin Ain't Easy, and soaringdownsouth.com. Until the very next time, you already know what it is.
There's really nothing to say. It's a big, big game for us. It's a division game on the road, and I know everybody wants the other story, but we're playing the Falcons. I don't give a shit.